Okay, good morning, everybody. Glad you could join us again. I'm assuming we'll still have some other people joining us this morning, but we do have a number of things that we want to cover, including making sure that we give Cindy and Nicole plenty of time, since we kind of had to skip over them at the last meeting. So we want to make sure there's plenty of time for their presentation today. So just a couple of quick business things, and then we'll get into the agenda. Our next meetings are, of course, on the 27th, and then, of course, no meeting on July the 4th. And then tentatively, our meeting is going to be July 11th and 25th, and August the 8th and the 15th. I am going on vacation and will be gone for about a month. But I do plan to have our meetings, but I'm thinking that we're going to do them every other week rather than every week. Gets a little bit difficult, depending on where I am, whether I even have internet. I may have to go to a library or something. Depending on where I am, whether I even have internet, to get internet. To go to a library or something. And getting feedback from somebody. So. And getting feedback from somebody. So. Okay. All righty. So got that. All righty. So got that.
It's Susan Beretta.
Okay.
It's Susan.
Yeah.
Beretta.
Okay. Okay. I just muted her, so hopefully that took care of that. And then moving on, we have a reminder just that we do have our kibitzing after our meeting. For those of you who don't know what our kibitzing is, that it's just a time for people who want to hang on after the meeting to just chat, to share information, ask questions, and that sort of thing. So again, we may get 10 people, we may get 25, don't know. And it may last 15 minutes or it may last an hour. But we encourage you to join us after the official meeting is over. Let's see, what else do I need to cover here? Oh, okay. So again, thanks to our sponsors, Care First Health Plan, Valley of the Sun United Way, Satellite Broadcasting Communications, Khajiit, and Triad Wireless. So I appreciate the support that you guys have provided us. Looks like we might have a couple of new people joining us. Susan, not sure who you are. I have muted you, and I will unmute you. Maybe. So Susan, do you want to unmute? And
good morning. Thank you. This is
Susan, do you want to unmute? And there you go.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So this is actually my second meeting. I work with Tracy Rexroad in the Arizona Department of Education. I work with the K-8 career literacy. So I'm very interested in some of the things that we're doing also that feeds down into the middle schools and elementary schools.
Great. Well, thank you, Susan. Glad you could join us this morning. Great. Well, thank you, Susan. Glad you could join us this morning.
Thank you.
I'm going to mute you again. Because, or you already did, as we're getting feedback for some reason. Okay, anybody else who's new to us today? Going once, going twice. Okay, then moving on. So we're going to make some changes to the agenda today. First of all, we have Wes is on the call today. And those of you who don't know Wes, he is the executive director of the Rural Schools Association. And he's going to have to leave soon, but he's got, I think, some important information to share with us. So Wes, you want to go ahead, please?
Sure. First of all, my apologies for being such an inconsistent member of this group. I'll begin with our annual conference, Arizona Rural Schools Conference, will be September 15 through 17 at Little America in Flagstaff. Steve, I can send you a notice if you don't mind, and if you would send it out to the people in this mailing list, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's a great way to get together with rural superintendents from around the state. It's also a great opportunity to go off, play bad golf on a beautiful golf course on the 15th. It'd be a really good break for folks who have been under a whole lot of pressure and even more to come. I also was talking to Steve about the Final Mile project. We have 9 projects underway. I'll have meetings later today about the status of those. We also received funding from the Department of Ed, another $3 million over 2 years. And as soon as we get some of our initial 9 projects up and running or underway in such a way that we have the time and attention, because it's only essentially just me and Mylan Eaton, we will move on to finding other likely candidates, likely school districts in rural communities for a final mile solution. Also, I had an interesting talk with Derek from Sun Corridor. And Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe ASU is interested in a partnership with us, which is amazing because we're just a little low membership association with this little old final mile project that we've been trying to do. It's like Mylan and I are trying to run a mom and pop project. The thought that somebody like our institution like our ASU might be interested in us is really gratifying. So I'm hopeful that allows us to expand our final mile solution and work with a wonderful institution like Sun Corridor and ASA, or ASU.
Yeah.
And the next thing and the last thing, I'll be brief. There are 2 bills that passed out of Ways and Means last week, House Bill 2853 and House Bill 2854 that we'll be watching probably this week. They'll post the new, they may revise them, they may not. They may go to rules exactly the way they were written, but the next step is the Rules Committee. That will probably be our last chance to comment. For those of you who are interested in the notion of universal ESA, to which all the major education groups in Arizona are firmly opposed.
Wes, you might want to tell people what ESA is.
Vouchers, essentially. There is a push by Representative Toma to make them universal and to allow kids to take those vouchers to private schools. Essentially, it's providing public money to private schools. The voters have spoken often about their opposition to ESAs in general and universal ESA in particular. And then House Bill 2854 is a funding bill that right now has conditional enactment. In other words, yeah, they'll give us some money. The education community, the schools will get some money, but it's conditional on the passage of the ESA portion. So we've got conditional enactment there that we're trying to defeat. Anyway, that's my typical long-winded presentation. I will keep Steve in the loop regarding those 2 bills. They should post probably between now and Wednesday, and then it'll be a matter of organizing folks to get down to the Capitol and speak about the bills and to organize resistance on the request to speak system that the legislature has. So anyway, Steve, thank you.
Well, thank you,
allowing me
Wes.
to intrude with a long rambling summary of where we are. Like I told Steve, I now become, for the next 3 months, a life support system for an annual conference.
Well, Wes, we're right on. I mean, what's happening, particularly with Final Mile, is absolutely of interest to us. So you don't need to apologize for that. And Derek, I think you started to make a comment earlier.
He's probably
Yeah.
just laughing.
I was simply going to confirm, yeah, that we would be delighted. I mean, the Final Mile project is advancing some very critical connectivity in the state, and we would be delighted to help and to be engaged. So yeah, I was just echoing Wes's comment. So
I'm really glad to hear that, Derek and Wes. I think I talked to you guys about this probably a year ago, about ideally seeing you guys partner together. So I'm really glad to hear that that's moving along.
yeah, indeed you did, Steve. It
Yeah.
might have been a year ago.
Yeah. At that time, Derek, you were a one-man band, I think.
Right.
And realistically, I understand we needed to be given the opportunity to prove the concept. And since we did not fall flat on our face, I think we now have the ability to expand partnerships.
Cool. So one thing, and we won't take the time today, but I think an interesting conversation is, so what's next? What kind of additional funding resources do you need to continue to support what you've got going on, and perhaps even do more in the future here?
Well, by way of answer, I'll tell you, we put in a request with the governor's office for another $5 million. I'm not holding my breath on that one, although Derek is welcome to if he chooses. So I doubt seriously it'll show up in his budget. But it's one of those open-ended needs. We need to run probably the next 10 projects, and then we'll have enough to really get a feel for what the average cost of a project is. But we're looking at school districts as small, Ash Creek, you got, depending upon what the dairy farms are hiring, maybe 30 kids. So there are numerous small districts, and that's what we do, is we focus on small districts that have E-rate broadband into their school, and then we can take it from there.
Cool.
So it's still very much a proof of concept, but we did not, I'm very happy to say we did not fall flat on our face once we got the funding.
Well, this is certainly just another example of great stuff that's happening here in Arizona. You guys are doing great stuff.
Anyway, everyone, thank you. And I appreciate your patience with me. Have a good week.
Thanks, Wes. Be in touch, and be sure and send me the stuff about your conference, and we'll get it out to people also.
Will do.
Okay, thanks. Okay, moving on quickly. So a couple of things. As I think you may know, that I'm interested in creating an AZBSN task force on cybersecurity, or I should say a team for cybersecurity. And that I'm looking at something like a cybersecurity alliance that I created a number of years ago. Anyway, I want to get that started, but I need to have a couple of people who are interested in stepping up to help coordinate that. For those of you who were involved earlier on with our task force, we had teams that we created, and we had 2 leaders with each of those teams who did a great job in facilitating those meetings and the planning for those groups. So I need to have a couple of folks step up to help with that, with the cybersecurity initiative. So if you're interested, please let me know. Next thing is, as I think you all know, and I've sent out the notice a couple of times already, that we were thinking about doing our own workshop on the Internet for All NTIA funding. And then we decided that because there are so many things already happening, so many different webinars and so forth, that we really didn't need to do that right now. Although Drew, I didn't see if you were online yet. But Drew and Mala we're talking about developing some kind of brief summaries of those that we may share with you, but we will put together, and I did include in the mailing, the email that hopefully you all got of the notice of this meeting, that there were at least 3 different things that were happening that I did put a link in there for you to view. NTIA did past events and were archived. And then the NTIA chief also did a webinar with one of the other organizations. And so those are all available. Most of them had question and answer sessions and so forth. And so again, we're going to share that information with you. And then if we need to also do our own event of some kind, we will look at doing that. So any questions or comments about that? Okay, moving on. So just a couple of reminders. I haven't had a chance to look at the participants, so I don't know. Aaron, are you online? Okay. Let me see who's here today. Okay, well, just a couple of things. So there is, and I'll be sending out a notice about this, but the Digital Equity Institute and ASU Shaping EDUs is going to be having Arizona Digital Navigators Program on Thursday, June the 30th from 8:30 to 2 o'clock in Phoenix. I don't believe that that's going to be available online. There is no charge to participate. You do need to have an invite. However, if you're getting this notice from us, then you have been invited. So I will send additional information and link about how to be able to sign up for that. They're actually going to be looking at 3 sessions, one in Phoenix, one in Tucson, and one in Northern Arizona. And so you'll get the notice about all of those events as they're coming up. I don't know, Cindy, do you know anything more about those workshops?
Yeah, I didn't understand that it was open to this entire group.
Yes, they did. I clarified that, and they did
Very
say
good.
to
Yep.
invite everybody on this team. So I did.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So anything else? So let's move on and get. I don't know. Jeff, are you online today? Or Sandip or anybody from? Okay, anybody know anything about the latest on what's happening with the state grants? Hello, it's awfully quiet. Derek, do you have any idea whether the grants have been announced yet?
I do not believe they've been announced. Last I heard from Jeff, and this is a few weeks old now, but the target was June 30, and it looked like it might go the distance. So
Okay. Yeah, someone had asked me about it. Thought they had heard that it was available, and excuse me. So I'm just wanted to check.
yeah, I haven't heard.
Okay.
Yes, Steve, we would know if they were
We would know.
out.
I would think so. I would think so, Mark. But anyway, so we'll move on. So Mala, do you want to do an update this morning?
Yeah, very quick one. E-rate wave 9 has been announced, and about $40 million so far has been approved for Arizona. So we are 1/3 of the way through our applications. We applied for 120 million. Schools and libraries applied for 120 million E-rate funding. As far as ACP is concerned, we had 270,000 households now signed up. 12.4 million out of the 12.4 million nationwide. So again, we had about 3,000, almost 4,000 households that signed up during this last week. The other hot topic is that I think I started talking about it last meeting, and that is the USF contributions. The FCC announced that it's going to be 33% in the third quarter, which is 33.4%, which is really record high. And that is because there'd been a drop in the base the contributing base by 18% just in the last quarter. So something has to be done urgently by FCC so that they're not burdening the carriers that are already paying into the USF fund, and ways to increase or broaden the base. So it's coming to the point where it is not sustainable if this contributing factor has to be 33.4%. That's 1/3 of every dollar that they receive that they have to give back for supporting all of the universal service funding, not just E-rate, but high cost, health, all of those kind of areas. I think, and the last thing I wanted to comment on, which actually Mark has put a link in our chat, is about the fact that we do need to coordinate all of the activities. We have already begun doing it in Arizona. We need a coordinated plan, a strategy to use the funding to reduce the digital divide, because they've identified, GAO had identified over 100 federal programs that are, small, fragmented, they're overlapping. It's not really ideal use of the fund. So a coordinated effort on behalf of the state and the different organizations would really benefit the state and the better utilization of the funding. So any questions, or back to you, Steve?
Okay, any questions from Awa? Questions or comments?
Oh, and one other thing, I won't be there next week. We're most of us that are attending this, Nicole and Holly, are all going to be at ALA, the
Okay.
American Library Association at DC. And the following week, you don't have this
Right.
meeting. So we'll be meeting on the 11th, if you have the meeting on the 11th.
Yeah. So just while we're mentioning the 11th, at least I'm planning, I'm actually leaving for vacation on the 11th, but I'm planning to do this meeting before I take off. But I will be in touch with you about schedules.
Thank you.
So before we move on, I see Rafael Casellas. I believe you're online. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sure. No, I'm Rafael Casellas, yes, and I am with a company called Lightspeed Technologies. We are one of Nokia's partners, and I just saw somebody send this to me and said you may want to dial in and see if there's a basically a need of Nokia equipment for that last mile type equipment for providing broadband. So we work with other, states, municipalities, local government, as well as utilities that are providing broadband to not just schools, but also communities. And I'm basically just here listening in to see if there's if there was a need or any questions for technology, that is.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. And if you send me your contact information, and actually I probably have it if you registered to join the meeting this morning.
I did, absolutely, but I'll reach out again.
Yeah, so you might want to contact me and let's chat some more and get acquainted.
Absolutely, thank you.
You bet. Okay, so moving on, I don't think, so Holly's not here today. Excuse me. So let's move on. I'm going to skip the digital inclusion for a little bit because we're going to come back to that. And Janet, I don't believe is here this morning.
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
Oh, sorry, Janet. I'm sorry, I missed you.
No worries.
You want
I
to
have a great resource I'd like to share this morning. Recently released is the study that was done by TTAC, the Telehealth Technology Assessment Resource Center. They're one of our counterparts in the National Consortium of Telehealth Resource Centers. And they did a really great technology survey that they do every 2 years. And it was only 9 questions, and it was really nothing too surprising. I mean, remote patient monitoring is really big right now in the telehealth space because it's now billable more so than ever. One thing that's been very interesting, and I saw a great presentation from Summit Healthcare up in the White Mountains in Show Low, is a lot of rural hospitals have started a COVID at home program so that they can keep the hospitals empty for other patients. And they've put together some really great and creative applications and scrounged up enough technology to be able to keep people with COVID at home. And that's reflected in the study. One thing I'd love to see in a future study, and I know that there are some consultants in telehealth here in Arizona who are talking about putting together a study under the leadership of Dr. Alan Pitt, and I sure would love to have them add a couple of broadband and connectivity questions to their survey when they send one out, so we can have an idea of what services people are providing and if they have adequate bandwidth and what services would they like to provide. I think it would be a great opportunity to get some great data about what folks need and have with regards to delivering services. We don't have a telehealth broadband plan, but it sure would be great data to help guide decisions that we'd make with regards to building out more robust telehealth connectivity. And I've also seen recently presentations where clinicians who were doing behavioral health are now competing with schools for what little bandwidth that there was. So we sure don't want to compete. We're all on the same team, and we want to be sure to start delivering telehealth services to schools and libraries and other places. And of course, we all know it takes bandwidth to do that. So I'm going to share the PDF in chat. And then the other really interesting thing that TTAC has done is they've also recently put out a white paper on the Oura ring, Oura, O-U-R-A, which is very interesting. It's a ring which is connected to a portal and can be used to monitor some basic values with regards to managing your health and managing your sleep. It is a smart ring, and it's a really impressive device. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll also put that link in chat. So thank you very much, and great to be here.
So Janet, just a quick question. So you mentioned about the need for a telehealth broadband plan. Is that something separate in addition to what we've been talking about with other broadband initiatives in Arizona?
No, I think we're on board. I think it would just be great when we think about different layers of the map and identifying gaps. I would love to see a layer of the map be telehealth. I don't think we need to build a formal plan. I think it's also interesting that in Colorado, they do have a telehealth broadband plan, and it was modeled after our state broadband plan that we produced in 2018. I don't mean to imply that we need a separate plan. I just think that we do need to try to identify what we have and what we need.
Okay, I just wanted to understand what you were suggesting.
Let me go ahead and put this PDF in chat. Thanks.
Okay, all righty. So moving on, let's move to the Department of Education real quickly. So Sophia, do you have anything? And I don't think Kelly's not on the call today either.
Yeah, Kelly couldn't make it. Really the only update I have on behalf of Kelly is they did send out last week their an interest form for a cooperative purchasing program. So that was sent out to all the schools to kind of gauge interest in that idea. And so that is something that office is looking into as one of their investments and use of their time and staff. So that's really exciting. It could be kind of a new thing that we try here in Arizona. Other than that, West did the final mile. He did great. We're excited to hear about their progress.
Okay. Any questions for Sophia? So Marlon, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Steve, this is John. I wanted to shout out to the Department of Education Office of Digital Teaching and Learning and Ryan Murray from the Department of Homeland Security because of their collaboration. Last week, there was a school superintendent whose email got hacked. A lot of us got emails from that superintendent asking us to open up the document, which of course had to ask for a password, which was a way to steal a password. So I didn't click on it, of course, but I sent it to Ryan, and Ryan shared with me the grant opportunity that's available for school districts to be able, and local governments to be able to access cybersecurity support. Sent that to the school district. So it just, the system works. So I just want to compliment both departments for their collaboration and how that could make a difference.
Good. Thanks, John. It is pretty cool that they have that that collaboration going on. Okay, anything else from the Department of Ed? If not, Derek, do you have anything else from Sun Corridor that you need to share? I don't know if you're still online.
Yeah, Derek I'm sorry, this is Gabriel Lopez.
Yeah, Gabe.
Had to drop, but there's no new news to share. Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. All righty. So let's get back to making sure, as I said, that today we're going to get an update on what's happening with digital inclusion, in particular, excuse me, the great program that we've had to Connect Arizona that the State Library has been doing for quite a long time. That Nicole and others have been driving that project. And so Nicole and Cindy and others, it's an awesome initiative and resource. And so I'm going to turn it over to Cindy and Nicole and let you guys kind of give us an update on what's happening with that project and the digital inclusion team that we're developing under AZBSN. So with that, do you guys need to share anything? You want me to stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Nicole Umayam, and I'm the Digital Inclusion Library Consultant with the Arizona State Library Archives and Public Records. We are a division of the Arizona Secretary of State's office. So I just wanted to clarify, today I'm going to be talking about our Connect Arizona initiative and our Digital Navigator program. I was not really going to talk about our work with all the other digital inclusion stakeholders on the ground. I was just really prepared to give an update on the website that the State Library has been developing that's been heavily informed and supported by a lot of us in this group and others who aren't here. So just wanted to clarify that. At the State Library, my colleagues Mala and Holly are here. We primarily serve Arizona's public libraries, but during the pandemic, we knew that we had to actually shift some of our models and turned to providing more of a public-facing resource so that Arizonans would have access to the information that they needed during the pandemic and beyond. So our typical job duties changed just a little bit with this initiative, but it's been a great way for us to serve Arizona even better through promoting library resources and services. So when we think about digital inclusion, at least here at the State Library, we think about a connected Arizona where everybody has access to the internet, to devices that meet their needs, and they also have the skills and the tech competence to thrive online, whatever that means. So we're talking about all communities, we're talking about everybody, whether they have specific barriers related to infrastructure in their area, paying for that internet service, or if they've been slow to adopt broadband and they need a little bit of unbiased support to encourage them to get online, to do some really cool things. So our Connect Arizona mission is actually twofold. Our first primary resource is to make sure that Arizonans have all the information and resources that they need to get connected. And again, this is a public-facing website. We always try to make sure that our documents are easy to understand, they're available in English and in Spanish, and that they provide relevant and up-to-date information related to all things digital inclusion. So that includes internet plans that are available in the state, information about where people can get computers, as well as information about local training and tech support that exists. And of course, our other mission is to provide an excellent digital navigator service through our Connect Arizona digital navigators. So this is a free service for anybody in Arizona, and as it turns out, some people from outside of Arizona as well, to call in and get one-on-one help from a library staff member on all things digital inclusion. But we'll get there in a little bit. I'm just going to move ahead.
Nicole,
So-
excuse me a second.
Sure.
Could everybody please mute so that, because we're getting some background noise. Sorry about that, Nicole, go ahead.
No worries. Give you a second to find that mute button. So we've really come a long way, and I know that we've been meeting together for 2 years now, and so a lot of you have seen our growth over time, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit with you now. We launched our Connect Arizona website in July of 2020, and this was really a product born of necessity. We know that in those first few months of the pandemic, when our vital public infrastructure like public libraries that were providing Wi-Fi, schools, everywhere shut down, but people still needed that public Wi-Fi access. Within our the AZBSN task force subcommittee, our education and library subcommittee, I believe it was called, we were identifying all of these gaps, but we knew we needed to get a resource together as quickly as possible just so people could get Wi-Fi. Of course, we knew that parking lot Wi-Fi wasn't going to solve anything, but it was still a critical means of survival, especially in those early days. And we were really amplified and informed by our partners. And I especially want to shout out my colleague Mala Muralidan here at the State Library with me, Elena Lowry, who's not on the call with Common Sense Media, Tracy Beal with School Connect, Sophia Bram with the Arizona Department of Education, of course, Steve Peters here with the COVID Task Force and AZBSN, and everybody who was on that committee who really helped us inform what are some of the pieces, the vital pieces that people in Arizona need to know at this time. We also had a lot of help from the State Land Department, who were helping us to get some public Wi-Fi options that we didn't originally have in our schools and libraries map, to help us build it out to where it is now. Since then, we've put a lot of time into developing more of our resources to serve both individuals in Arizona as well as practitioners or people who are interested in what's going on in this state. So one of our, like I mentioned, we collect and compile information on low-cost internet plans that are available in Arizona. We have a really fun zip code lookup tool that will show what's available. And we were continuously updating that and making sure that our information is good. We also collect information on computers that are available for schools and nonprofits to buy, as well as for individuals to get at a discount or sometimes even for free. Of course, we still have our free public Wi-Fi map that's available, and we've been developing our directory of digital inclusion practitioners. And this is a growing resource that highlights different organizations that are doing some type of digital inclusion work, whether that's advocacy on the ground, providing free computer access centers in the community, skills training, anything that's kind of broadly touching digital inclusion. We wanted to provide an asset map for people, and I'm looking forward to developing that, maybe to be a little bit more specific at the county level. In our work, we also get to have some really rich conversations with people trying to wrap their head around, what is the digital divide? Like, we kind of learned it's not just if you have it or you don't have it. There's all sorts of qualities that go into it, and a lot of other social considerations that we talk about in this group. But we wanted to provide a fact sheet at the county level that could help people who are having these conversations locally, and it could equip them with some as good of data as we're able to. So this is pulling from the American Community Survey, from the Census Bureau, as well as MLab's speed tests. We know all data is sort of suspect, but we wanted to have these documents that were remixable and usable for a lot of people. So those are really available on our website.
Excuse me, Nicole, we're getting some
Sure.
noise from somebody in the background here. Not sure who that is.
Nicole, it might actually be you.
Is it?
Yeah.
The
a
call
little-
is coming from inside the house here.
Well, we
You know,
can't mute you.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Steve,
at this point, I don't know how to rectify that.
It's
Steve,
not
can
as
you just
bad
mute
as it
everybody?
sometimes is. So, yeah, I think we can live with it as long as we know there's nothing else we can do about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if only I had a free tech support hotline that could help me with some of these issues. Okay. So this slide that I showed you showed our humble first Google site where we just quickly stood up our website and got moving. And in early 2021, we were able to shift to a WordPress site instead to host our site, which allowed us to just make a much more user-friendly interface, and as well as be mobile compatible and have a lot of more immersive tools. So these stats are from our shift in early 2021 to the present day. Doesn't necessarily include those first early days with our Google site as well. But I'm glad to say we've had over 40,000 page visits throughout the entire site since, at least since we started tracking with our new WordPress site. And most of these page views are what was, first started as the EBB page and is now the ACP page. And a lot of people are reaching this from Google, from a web search, someplace like Google, and then are coming directly to our page, or it's getting linked from, to some specific pages on our site from a number of different partners. We're getting referrals from, public library sites or their Facebook pages that they put out, some schools, from the ACA here, and like I mentioned, a lot of just direct web searches as well. Our public Wi-Fi map, for us in Libraryland, this kind of viral, viral status to have 380,000 views of this map, because especially in the early days, it was such a vital tool, and as a Google map, it was able to be embedded in all sorts of websites, outside of Connect Arizona, which was fantastic. So the next I want to talk about our other service, which is the people side of it. So we provide information, but we also have information professionals on our team, and these are our digital navigators. This has now become a term of industry, a digital navigator, and there's all sorts of different ways that this can look. In our particular model, we're still one of the only navigator models that serves an entire state rather than a region or a city, which makes us a little bit unique. And we're one of the first state libraries to support public libraries through offering this service. In our model, the state library actually asked library directors locally to identify and recruit their staff members to apply as these part-time navigators that were hired as contractors essentially through the state library. They are located all throughout Arizona. They come from the library world, and they work remotely through our Connect Arizona website. And I'm just so thankful for the team that I have, because in addition to just providing excellent customer service, their background in supporting, any type of person from the community who can be in need of library services with a lot of patience and creativity. They also help me to collaborate on our internal documents and procedures, making sure that we are minimizing friction and are meeting our team's needs as well as our callers' needs, and to make sure that those workflows are great. And so they're really the superstars, and I'm just always so grateful for their creativity and their excitement to really serve Arizona. Because of their foundation as library staff members with some of this baked in knowledge, the training that we had to do is more around broader understanding of digital inclusion. It's not typically a discussion that frontline staff have, although they're very aware of it through their work. And we also spent a lot of time understanding the Arizona landscape. So they really became data experts in their own area in terms of connectivity. And then we kind of put on our user persona hat to think about what does it look like to try to sign up for internet if you're somebody who is maybe in a rural area who doesn't have a lot of options, and you're seeing these yard signs that promise you stellar internet. What's that experience like? So really just humanizing the process. So digital navigators in our model and in other models really support all digital inclusion needs. So while we, as a shorthand, we say we're free tech support, it's really so much more than that. So we can direct and support people in finding what is available in terms of services or devices. And we do this through one-on-one support that really has a pretty gracious time limits, which is different than maybe a tech support line from a service provider that wants to end those calls pretty quickly. We're able to meet one-on-one digital skills training kind of at the problem level of the caller. So if that's somebody who, they're not really that comfortable online yet, but they need an email address to be able to register for the COVID vaccine, or it's somebody who is visually impaired who needs help setting up their new MacBook to be able to use those features. If it's somebody who said, hey, I found this free Wi-Fi map, but I really need help figuring that out, we are able to support all of those things. And so it's really been a joy to see the community reacting to having this trusted local support that they can call on. And another benefit of our model, because we were remote during the pandemic and we continue to be remote, we're able to offer services over the phone, by email, and by text message as well. So in addition to providing support individually for communities, we are also supporting organizations broadly. And we do this through maintaining our online resources, as well as participating in national discussions of other digital navigator models. And as you'll see in a little bit, sharing information and actually creating resources to be shared out locally in Arizona. Hi. So now I am getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure if we can do anything about that, but I'm just going to keep going.
That might be Joy Whiting. Joy, can you mute?
Sorry, yes.
No problem, thank you. So since we opened our virtual doors, we've supported over 2,000 tickets. And these are, like I said, they're multimodal, so they can be phone-based, they can be email-based, sometimes text messaging, but that's not quite as frequent. We're averaging about 40 calls a week, and these calls can be pretty substantial. And so with our team, it's, we certainly keep our hands full trying to support all of the callers that are either calling in, as a straight hotline, or making an appointment to get one-on-one help on something in the future. Let's see, I'm really happy when we crunch the numbers, we found out that about 35% of our callers are actually repeat callers. So they learned something useful or enjoyed the service enough that they're actually contacting us again. They're making standing appointments to get one more tidbit of information, learn one more skill. So we're really, really grateful to see that. Right now, about 35% of our calls revolve around what we call tech tutoring. So this is things like setting up a new phone, getting an email, learning to use a new type of software. 20% of our calls are around supporting library e-content. So these are things like information access to the free databases and e-services that libraries provide. And about 15% of our calls are helping people with internet offers. So that includes ACP, but even before then, just wrapping your head on, do I need a mobile plan? Do I need a wired plan? My housing is unstable, what's available there. It's been really useful to have somebody who's just in your corner to help you think through some of those issues. I just wanted to share a couple of testimonials that we have from some of our callers. We've got a number of these up on the website, but and you can take a look at those there. But really, what it comes down to is having local and trusted support who are willing to patiently hear you out and direct you to whatever resources you need. Most people do not know what the state library is, which is just fine, but they recognize, somebody coming from the library world is a public institution and that they can trust. So it's really been a benefit to have this situated under the state library and to employ library staff members. So one key feature for the past year or so has been to provide the best information we can about the discount internet offers that are now available as a federal benefit. And we've really learned that already having this site up as a one-stop information hub has been really useful for people who are trying to get signed up. And we've learned that the navigators are really fulfilling a critical role in this sort of new era of getting signed up for these internet benefits. Unfortunately, there's some they're as simple as the process is aimed to be. It's still useful to have somebody who you can call on to actually even be in the three-way call with service providers and the customer trying to get facts straight. They can send you straight to information about what you would qualify for. And we're also developing a number of resources that are shared out by a lot of our partners. And in our digital inclusion lunch meetings, we've been getting some great ideas from those participants and trying to develop responsive resources based on that feedback that can be printed and shared really widely. So it's been an interesting process, but a little validating to know that this role is really meeting needs, especially in this unprecedented time where we are looking at affordability, but the skills and the tech competence piece has to go hand in hand with getting people signed up. If you're interested in sharing some of these resources, I'll share our media kit and public folder where you can print the FCC's documents as well as the Arizona specific ones that we've created. And then here is our contact information for the navigators. I'll just encourage you to share that. We also have a public folder where you can share our promotional materials as well. So that's where I wanted to end things. I'm not keeping an eye on the chat though. There are questions coming in.
So any questions for Nicole? Comments?
Yeah, well, I think it's a fantastic resource that they've put together. I'm wondering how much advertising you do of what's available, because it seemed like you could get a lot more users if it were heavily advertised, people knew about all the resources you provide.
Yep. Libraries are sort of notorious for struggling to self-promote, and we really rely on all of our partners to share out our resources. So at the state library, our partners include all the library leaders in the state as well. So they get some of our materials that we share out. We did some targeted Facebook ads, but we didn't really notice that making too much of a difference in our call volume. We've explored newspaper ads as well, trying to focus specifically on different counties in Arizona. But I think especially in the early days, we've got the word out about the Wi-Fi map. That was the critical need. And then the navigators are sort of a resource to help. But a Wi-Fi map is easier to communicate a little bit more than what is a navigator. So I agree that our message could be louder, but it could also be a little bit clearer about, what can this person help us with? In the early days, we had people thinking we could sell them internet, and that's not the case. So I'm really glad that we're now in a time where there's some counties in Arizona that are putting money towards hiring a county digital navigator. There's ASU that's supporting navigators at the community level. So we're just seeing this become a term of industry. So I'm hoping that will help with recognition of what we can offer. But yeah, if anyone wants to share our materials and help us with this outreach, that's what it's all about.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Jeff, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Hey, Nicole, fantastic job. Every time I travel, I hear great things about Nicole and the work that she's doing. Has added a ton of value to our state. Cindy, Joy, and others that were involved, y'all are doing a great job. We're looking forward to working with all of you in this new capacity as we move forward with the IIJA funding. Question for you though, what's holding you back that's related to money? If you had more money, what would you do differently?
Ooh. More navigators.
Cindy's laughing, I can see that.
Yeah. More navigators, and what Henry mentioned, promotion. I agree. I'm supporting this program, as a library consultant in my role, which is serving Arizona's public libraries, and on the side trying to keep this project going and be a good team leader, and is lucky enough to get a project manager for it as well. But it's kind of one of many jobs that we all have. So if we could put some more resources just to promotion and to hiring more navigators, I think that would really bring us to the next level. I've been really inspired by some models I've seen of other state libraries that are actually using their funding to subgrant to start local navigator programs. And I think that is an easier entryway in some cases, especially if we want to start targeting communities that are highly impacted by digital inequity. So, if we could focus on navigator programs for refugee communities or for migrants, or navigators that are just working in a specific region, I think that'd be a really great way to go in terms of resources as well.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, so Nicole, you like more of a distributed model where the navigators are closer to the community as opposed to more of a centralized call center function?
I think it's both. And we're going to be seeing both.
Awesome.
So
thank you. I'd like to piggyback a little bit on some of the comments Jeff made. This is Mauricio. Nicole, you've done such a great job. I can share a couple of things with you that we actually learned from our access members for our health plan. Have you thought about including a QR code in your materials? Because we found that just by putting a QR code in a flyer or somewhere, it really increased the clicks. People are more used to kind of like, we're on the go, we take a picture of a QR code and then you get them direct access to the website or the information. So that would be one simple suggestion, just to see how that goes. And then another thing is that you already probably have some type of curriculum that maybe you can create like a train-the-trainer model for other folks that might be interested in becoming navigators that are not really part of the library system. So that would be another suggestion. But great job.
Great, thank you.
So I was going to say a couple of things, Jeff, and to pick up kind of on your questions and comments earlier. First of all, it's amazing. What you guys have done is just phenomenal, Nicole, and congratulations. And also to Holly and Mala and everybody at the State Library for supporting this project and all the great stuff you guys do. I've said it many times, it's just phenomenal. We have a really awesome state library. So to pick up on Jeff's question, and of course, we're going to be seeing lots of discussions about digital inclusion in the next year, in particular, as the funding becomes available. But my question really is, do we have kind of a strategic vision about what we would like to do with this program what kind of funding do we need and how do we make that happen, what the state library is going to continue to provide, and what other kinds of resources. And so I don't know if you can answer all that, but I'm just thinking that that seems to make some sense.
Wow, Steve, getting asked that question is sort of like Christmas in early June, July, because that would be my dream, is to see just this wider discussion about how can we meet these needs like at this level, and how can we all collaborate. We do have some strategic directions in terms of the state library. That's kind of the framework that I've been operating in, like with I'm really lucky to get a lot of support from Holly and from my colleagues at the state library. So our directions have involved things like, how can we actually get a online training system that's consistent, that can be a resource. So we're looking at basically basic computer skills modules that we can do some one-on-one support. And then of course, how do we make sure that we're connected to as many state agencies and local organizations as possible by getting our marketing materials, being a little bit smarter about how are we promoting an online resource to people who don't have reliable internet, and that sort of thing. So I would love to have those conversations going on. But I will say the insightful thing for me has been just how important circling around a specific issue or specific objective has been for growing it. I think communicating, this statewide conversation of digital equity is a big ask for people who just want to get online. But when we've been having our collaborative project planning sessions with organizations about ACP, we're really getting some great ideas, and we're really able to add value to those organizations' missions. So just to illustrate, 3 years ago with the state library, we would have never been having a partnership with the food bank, the Sahuarita Food Bank, or with Wildfire, or with United Way even. And because we're so energized about getting people information about ACP, and people are really seeing how critical that is, we're able to collaborate and to join together. So it's really been fantastic to have something specific to aim for. So I think if we're talking about a statewide message or kind of statewide vision for this, it's kind of got to have some meat and potatoes that make sense for local organizations.
Well, as you know, that digital navigators now is the big thing. Digital inclusion and digital navigators has now become a central focus of discussion as we continue to try to provide the connectivity, but now it's the question of how are we going to support people. So that's now has become a part of the national discussion, and certainly here in Arizona. Holly, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, not really. I just, obviously want to thank Nicole for her presentation, for all the work that she's done with the program, and we're anxious to, see how we can continue to grow and develop this. We feel like it is a valuable service, and we really want it to continue and grow. So Jeff, I'm kind of interested in when you ask if we had more money, what would we do? What did you have in mind?
Well, I'll probably give you the worst kept secret in the state. We are working with Dr. Erin Carr-Jordan and the Digital Equity Institute on our plan to create a plan for the IIJA program. That's due July 12th, which is coming up very, very quickly, which access more additional funding, which will allow Dr. Carr-Jordan to help us put together a statewide implementation program. Lots of lessons learned from what Nicole has done. And, she is clearly one of the go-to people, quite frankly, in the country on this. So we will be consulting. The challenges we have at the high level is the scalability of this. Nicole brought up a really good point. I hate to use the word marketing, but call it outreach. And that's one of those areas I think that we're all going to have to kind of go to the drawing board. There's a very big community outreach portion of the digital equity program. So we expect to spend a lot of time with not just the state library, but with Cindy and others, just trying to figure out the best way to do this. The the buckets that they're asking us to do in the process are pretty specific, but pretty broad at the same time. You know, there are things like, for example, I don't know, does the state library have a presence in our penitentiaries? That's one of the groups that we have to involve in this process. How do we work with folks behind bars to get the digital skills so when they get out, they're not going to wind back up where they came from? This is a big passion for the governor as well. I don't know if you're aware, he put through a program called Ban the Box that allowed folks to apply for state jobs without, you know, having to declare their record for many jobs. So yeah, that's a specific example. They also list things like rural individuals and you know, obviously in Arizona, English as a second language is a really big thing. How do we ensure that, you know, not just Spanish, but you know, not far from where I used to live in North Central Phoenix, there are multiple immigrant communities, and they all need help. So these are all big problems that we're talking about. I'll see Erin this week at a conference in Cleveland, and this is one of the things we're going to talk about is, you know, how do we build upon the good work that Nicole and her team have done? And you know, no easy answers, but you'll be part of the process, Holly, believe me.
Great, thank you.
And Cindy, you have your hand up, and actually you probably have some other things to add to all this.
First of all, I'm so glad you're going to the Cleveland conference. That's huge. They're so on it, and there'll be so much to learn there. The people are great. And what was I? So when I came into this work, I was about 6 months in and discovered the word navigator and knew that was going to be what needed to explode, and here it is. It's happening. I put something in the chat that I got. I'm going to put that I got on an email from NDIA that is a study about digital navigators, and it's very rich in information. There's also a statistic, which is the first time I've seen a statistic that says every dollar spent in providing digital inclusion returns $2.40. So it really is a thing. It's so useful. It's kind of the hand holding that you know, as we all got on our train with technology and just went down the tracks, we never looked back to see the supports that were missing along the way for people that weren't as fortunate as we were. And so we're having to go back and kind of recreate those, but we're doing it. We're doing it now, and I'm so glad to see it rolling out across the country. And it's being defined in lots of different ways. So it's adaptable. And the other thing is that I'm on a committee in Pima County where we're looking at digital inclusion for a Pima County strategic plan, and we had our first community listening session in Ajo, Arizona last Saturday. Got to sit around a circle with 25 attendees and listen to what's going on for rural Arizona. They're very, of course, we showed up there wanting to talk about digital literacy and competence. And the first things out of their mouth was connectivity. So that's, you know, that is a first step. But it's really, the team that went out have all been in this for some time, but we still learned new things. And we had the librarian from Ajo was there and able to share with them the resources that the library has. And it was great. I have 2 more of those this week, one on Wednesday in Tucson and one on Saturday at Sahuarita. And just looking forward to I think that is a really, really key piece of all this IIJA funding, is that really, really structured, accountable community outreach. And I think it's going to be a really, really good thing. And that was really all I had to say today, Steve. Thanks.
Well, and Jeff, I think as you've been hearing that, you know, the whole Navigator thing has become a big movement, and it really is focused on local communities and finding local people, local organizations, tying in with people who have connections And I think Cindy, you can, speak to that also, and the information we heard from Lisa Gustinelli and the experience she had in Florida. And she spoke about that before, and we'll be hearing more from her in the future about the challenges of getting people signed up, getting them to use the technology, trust in the community, and so forth. And so but the focus really is going to be largely on local communities. So Jeff, before we end for today, since you weren't here earlier, do you have anything else that you need to share with us today?
We're going to have a very big announcement next week. So stay tuned middle of the week. I think many of well, I'm not going to say who, but there are going to be some very excited communities. There are some truly transformative projects that have been proposed. I know the folks on our committee to evaluate these are very excited, and I'm one of 7 on the committee, so I'm certainly not the decider in chief, but I will tell you just from my perspective, I couldn't be more excited about the projects all over the state. Some communities that you're going to hear, and it will absolutely transform those communities.
So Jeff, is that announcement going to be online, or how is that going to happen? Can we share a link, anything?
So I'm working with our comms people here and with the governor's comms people. There's a point where I sort of hand that off to them and they run with it. So as soon as I hear something specifically from the governor's office, Steve, I'll let you and Mark know, and you guys can blast out to the group.
Okay, thanks. And then Mala, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say, we take for granted that any program that is offered by the federal government or the state, for grants, people would just sign up. People don't sign up. They do need help. And even the trainings that are provided are trainings online. And most often they do not speak the common language that people understand. There's lots of language that is specific to the grant, which people don't, like NOFO. Who understands what NOFO means? Unless you are very deep into it, just like we are. So I wanted to emphasize that the real need for digital navigators in any funding that goes on, because we need to make it sustainable, and IMLS has really helped through our LSTA grants, and I think Holly put that in the chat, and we are grateful for all of the funding that we receive from them, but that is not going to be enough to sustain this on a large scale. So when Jeff asked about what do you need the money for, it is, what could you do if you had more money? I think that's a very important aspect to make it sustainable, to make the Digital Navigator program more sustainable, and make the training available in multiple languages so people can understand it and bring it down to the 3rd grade, 2nd grade level of understanding.
Yeah, Mal, I was just going to say, one of the things that Nicole flashed up on the screen, which I thought was great, was tracking metrics. That's a really big part of what we're asked to do here. So any programs have to be able to be tracked and validated. Several of you, I blasted out a question a couple weeks ago. I'm going to put that into our broadband metrics for the ACA in terms of the number of folks that have been assisted, much like Nicole did. I think we need to come up with a cool name. My first thought was digital assists or something, and I got some other ones. But if you have any good names for that metric, I'd like to embed that in the ACA 5-year plan as part of the broadband. So great job again, and I'm excited to get to work with y'all.
And I'd like to echo also what Janet said about telehealth and the need for navigators for telehealth. The Access program has been there forever, as long as I know of it. But there are still people who need the Access plan and who don't know about it and who don't know the intricacies of it and don't know how to navigate it. We really need champions in the telehealth area as well, Jeff. So hopefully all of that is going to get into a part of the plan that we do statewide.
So I have a couple of quick things. Mauricio, do you want to just comment quickly on the information you put into the chat?
Sure. Jeff was mentioning about focus on folks that are just as involved, either trying to prevent them from going into jail through diversion programs, or maybe doing in-reach to those folks that might be exiting the justice system. Every Access health plan in Arizona, there's 7 of them. They have designated staff members by contract to make those type of transitions for those members that might be justice involved. So that would be a good place to start as far as this specific population. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out. There's already staff members in each one of the health plans that are designated, and it would be a good place to start for some of this outreach that we're talking about.
Mauricio, you know, earlier, the Arizona Corrections and other prison facilities were eligible. They're still eligible for E-rate to get a recurring cost of their internet paid, but they don't apply because when we approached them initially, they said, no, we are cutting internet off, cutting access to internet off for the inmates, and we don't allow them to access. But I agree, for them to come out of this into the real world, they do need internet access. They do need training for them. I don't know how they can split that or do it. I'm not, you know, that tech savvy to say, okay, you know, you can provide internet access for the inmates that are exiting the system, but not for the inmates that are in the system. But that is very, very critical, because unless we give them the life skills, they're going to end up back where they started, you know. And that's
I totally agree. And I think, like Jeff and Nicole have mentioned, a lot of these programs and great resources, it's about education, promotion. Many people, we all assume that people know about it, but you have no idea of how people are not connected to someone that might give them resources or that are familiar with resources out in the community. So we can never really assume that everyone knows, because some people don't even know what Access is in some of our outreach events. You know, people get confused. There's so much information out there, and sometimes it takes 7 or 8 times for them to listen to the message before people have a grasp of understanding of what the resources and information is. So I agree with you.
So I just want to say one more thing, because it's time, we're past time for our meeting to end here. So one of the things that I think we all know is that after we've really focused, I shouldn't say after, we're obviously continuing to focus on the connectivity, but it's become very clear that this issue about digital inclusion is a huge issue, much more than we ever even envisioned. I mean, we knew when we started the task force that was important, but now you start looking at all the needs. You got students, you got seniors, you got folks, as we were just talking about, in the criminal justice system, and on. And many of them all have different kinds of needs and requirements and all that sort of thing. So it's really a very complex issue. And I'm certainly glad to hear that Erin's going to take some lead on this. But we really need to figure out, how do we address all that? And where's all the money going to come from to be able to do this? And it's certainly going to be clear that it's going to be a combination, federal, state, even private sector funding, to be able to address all these needs. And we also know, as I said earlier, and others have said, that depending on existing local organizations to be an important part of this process is going to be absolutely critical. So with that, that's the end of my soapbox. Anybody have anything else they want to add before we end? So one last thing is just a reminder, if you have anything that you want me to share, as I said in my notices that I send out, that I try to go through the chat, and if there's anything that people want to have included in follow-up, please put it in the chat with links if you've got it, so that I can copy those out and put them in the newsletter. And so with that, I think we're done for today. We will see you next week. Again, no meeting on the 4th, and I will get back with you about the schedule for the next month after that while I'm on vacation. Anything else anybody has? If not, we're done for today, and anybody wants to stay on and kibitz, welcome to do that.